So, again, thank you for coming on the show. And 30 albums. 30 albums.
Yeah, 30.
There's only one other person I can think of that has such a diverse musical collection, and his name is Robert Pollard. And if you don't know Robert Pollard, he is a lead singer of several bands. One of them is called Guided by Voices.
That's his main baby. That's his...
It is. And if you look him up, he's actually in the Guinness Book of World Records as the most prolific singer-songwriter in the world.
Yeah, for now.
For now.
You hear that, Bob? For now. 'Cause I'm on you, man, like white on rice.
And I don't know how you do it. I mean, I know some people that it takes them years and years just to get that one record out, and you have just such a wonderful eclectic collage of music to draw off of. I don't know how you do it.
Well, you know, I've also played on other people's records, and I've been in bands that have put out records too. I was in a band called Phantom's Opera that had some significant success in the commercial arena. What it is for me, I figured you'd ask me something like that, so I was thinking about it a little bit on the ride here. And for me, I think it all germinated as a teenager. You know, you hear some records and there's a pretty girl you want to flirt with or whatever, so you pick up a guitar like anybody else and you learn how to do a couple things to turn some heads. But for it to really sustain and last, it has to go deeper. It has to go into a spiritual well that you're drinking out of. And for me, I actually left home at the ripe old age of 15. And there's times when I was on my own, that young, I was scared, lonely. And music became more than just a superficial thing to me, like just sitting in some basement somewhere tugging on G-strings like an 80-year-old blues geezer helped me metabolize the pain that I was in. And throughout my lifespan, I've always gone back to it as a tool for personal therapeutic catharsis.
Mm-hmm.
And as a teenager and in my early 20s, I literally grew up. I graduated high school in 1986 in Sayreville, New Jersey, and at that time I was literally living around the block from Jon Bon Jovi, who was experiencing a profound level of success with an album called Slippery When Wet.
Mm-hmm.
It was like Living on a Prayer, Wanted Dead or Alive.
One of the big keys of the 80s rock music was those songs.
Yeah, and you know, as a funny side note, I was one of the teenagers that helped pick out the songs on that album. And you know, you knew they were already a popular band, but the songwriting for the time, for the era, I mean, sometimes now you listen to 80s music and it sounds a little silly or overly sentimental or sappy or whatever, but at the time, listening to it, you knew it was going to be huge. But I will take credit for one big thing. There's 7 teenagers listening to the demo tracks that were recorded at a local studio called Century Sound. In fact, it was owned by my bass player's uncle, Mickey Yannick, and that's where they recorded all the stuff. And they played a song called Wanted Dead or Alive. And all the girls were like, ew, that sounds like cowboy music. And I'm like, yo, it's like, wait, hold on. When no one cares about this band, 20 years later, this is going to be the song that's still cool. Like, this is going to be and sure enough, I mean, you've seen it. We've jammed a couple times. People lose their minds when you play that song.
The last time we played in a group...
By the way, folks, Cliff and I play in a lot of groups together, but we're talking about one called Rockweed.
And the last time we played was at Annabelle's Bar and Grill in Lubeck.
We'll be back there March 18th.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and you and Elijah just played there last night. I remember the last time you and I played there, one of the guys came up and requested to
shove the iPhone in my face.
Yes. There you go. And
enduring legacy of that song. Anyway, so that was just a side note. So my point was, when you're that close to that level of pop stardom. And like one of my first gigs was opening up for Skid Row, which John's mother she's the one who got me the gig. Like, I was in the middle of some huge stuff, and I was only 18 years old myself, so when you're that young and you're seeing that much crazy epic stuff going on, you obviously want to emulate it. You're inspired by it. So, I was like an 18-year-old little Bon Jovi wannabe. I hadn't really found my own voice as an artist, and really hadn't even developed as a musician yet, because there was just this pressure to like seize the moment and also get signed and also put out records and all this stuff. And all of a sudden the whole area that I was living in was just filled with overnight bands. We were living at my drummer's house, and we'd open the door and there'd be like a carload of Japanese girls screaming because they were just on the hunt for American. It was like being in Liverpool, but in Sayreville in the 80s. So
oh my God.
It was a pretty distorted kind of ego perception of what it meant to be a musician. Looking back, I can see that it was actually kind of toxic towards the artistry itself, but it was a hell of a good time.
It's weird sometimes. You have artists that kind of pressure to deliver, to perform, and to improve internally yourself as a musician. I know that there are musicians out there that respond well to that, and it's like a diamond in the rough, and you have others that is like you kill them. Metaphorically, physically, emotionally, you take them out. So I can understand why it can be toxic.
Well, we had gotten some record company interest, and I don't even know if it was so much about the music as much as that at 18 I was a cute kid, and it was like more like I was a walking lottery ticket for someone to figure out how to capitalize upon. I mean, I know that now. I didn't realize it at the time. But so we spent a couple of years chasing success, and we toured a little bit, and we put out an independent release, and we had full page ads in like teen metal magazines and stuff like that. Really what happened was we got very close to getting signed. We headlined the Stone Pony, which is like a big club in New Jersey that's very famous, and we played at a local outdoor arena called the Garden State Art Center, and so we'd basically climbed the ladder that you can climb, and we were very close to getting signed. And then Nirvana happened, and Pearl Jam, and the whole Seattle scene occurred. And basically the labels that were interested in me wouldn't even answer the phone when I called like a week later, because I was in a band that was doing melodic hard rock with 5-piece harmonies and really good guitar solos and very rehearsed, and we cared about music theory and stuff like that. And
the grunge movement came in. It
was such a rebellion and such a defiant pendulum swing. It was a complete antithesis of what scene we were in. So at the ripe age of 22 years old, I felt like this completely washed up. I had my friends that were like wearing flannel shirts and moving out to Seattle, or they were getting mullets and moving to Nashville to write songs, and everyone like was abandoning their post, And I'm like, what am I going to do? This is the community I grew up in. This is the music I grew up in. This is who I am. It's what I am. I'm not going to change who I am just because it's not in fashion anymore. But it was pretty odd feeling at such a young age to be like,
you busted hump.
We almost got there, and then we were the opposite
like
of any.
Pull.
Yeah, rug was completely pulled. I mean, I can look back on that now, and I can see the value of what it did for pop music and rock music. It needed, it was the glam metal thing had come in waves, and it had just gotten watered down and just even cheesier and cheesier. Like it was ripe for being cold.
It was ripe for a complete shock out of left field.
Yeah, and in context, I can look back on that, and I can see the sociological impact and value and cultural relevance of what happened. At the time, I was pretty bummed out because I was pretty close to, had a little taste of what it could have been.
Yeah.
And that band ended up having its own life anyway, because even though the grunge thing got real popular in America, Europe and Asia was still into the American melodic rock and roll thing. So I found some success there, licensing some of my records and stuff like that. So I got a little taste of it. It was cool. Like, we're on the same charts as like Green Day and U2 and stuff like it was cool. But around that same time, I had started a job at Polygram Records as an apprentice audio engineer and an archivist. So while I was busy feeling sorry for myself for, not having gotten a chance to do what I thought I was going to do, I was getting exposure to everything from like the hit parade era to, great moments in jazz history with the Verve catalog with like Stan Getz and Lester Young and Ella Fitzgerald. And I earned credits on the Billie Holiday box set and the Ella Fitzgerald box set. And my young brain got to hear all this amazing music. I got to hear Motown recordings off the original analog masters. Nice.
I feel that you and I have a certain parallel in this sense. Mine is on a much lower scale, but the professor of music here, Gene Nichols, if you go into his music room, it is wall-to-wall vinyl. He is a serious vinyl collector, and for a couple of years, I apprenticed as, I was his assistant. So anything needed done, setting up equipment, filing stuff away, I'd be doing it. And there would be days where I would do the exact same thing. I'd be working, and it's like, well, let's just go up, grab something random out of his... And I've heard some amazing stuff, because I was able to be like you. I was exposed to all this stuff I wouldn't have been exposed to.
Right, and what happened for me is I started having some awakening, like, oh, poor baby, you didn't get to, make it off of your pop rock tunes or whatever. I was like, well, I'm listening to jazz musicians that had, 100,000 times the talent I'll ever have, and one Pinky who died penniless on these recordings and these late-night jam sessions at Rudy Van Gelder's. And I was like, I just started kind of seeing a bigger picture outside of my own ego perception of music.